Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Cell Core Detox Protocols presentation. Let's see. Let me just make sure you guys hear me when you start coming on. Hi there. If somebody wouldn't mind to say in the comments that you hear my audio, that would make me feel better. Anybody? Anyone? I think it's working. Okay. Thank you, Kathleen and Emily. I think there's a delay because comments don't come through right away. Thank you. I appreciate it. So it's 1:00 here in Arizona. We may as well get started. Thank you, Estefania. Hi, Holly. Excited as always to have people on live, so I'm not talking to myself. I actually just finished this presentation this morning. And I'm really excited. Maybe if you feel like sharing in the chat how much you know about Cellcore or what brings you here, that can help direct me. I would say I'm presenting this as sort of like for an advanced beginner with Cellcore. I know that my audience is usually pretty knowledgeable about health and detox, but it may be the products more that you're less familiar with. So I've known Dr. J and Dr. Todd from Cellcore for quite a while now, maybe 6 years, something like that. And okay, so some newbies on here. That's great. Okay, thanks, ladies, for sharing. Actually, let me just start my slides here as I tell this story. So just a quick disclaimer, this is for just information and learning, not to diagnose you or anything like that. And if you haven't met me, you have happened upon this through YouTube. My name is Bridgit Danner. I'm a functional health coach and acupuncturist. And I'm realizing I'm almost on 20 years in practice. And my business has kind of evolved to working in the detox field. And I wrote a book about toxic mold. Oh, Erin said she went to Eco conference with Cellcore recently. That's awesome. Yeah, I was there as well. Cool. And Sarah is familiar but hasn't tried it yet. I know for me, when I started to learn about Cellcore, it felt like a lot. The names of the products and what they do, it just seemed like a lot. And when you're already not feeling well, it's kind of a lot. So that's what I'm here for, the best I can do. So we're gonna cover quite a bit of ground today. And here's Dr. J and Dr. Todd I was talking about. So Dr. Todd on the left there was having his own chronic illness, like super low energy. I don't know if he was already a chiropractor or that's what drove him to be a chiropractor, but he had kids and he was exhausted and later found out he had Lyme, probably had a bunch of stuff. I know that he's traveled to India where he's learned some things for parasites, and I don't know where it all fit into his timeline, but their first product is this Para 1, and that's what it's called now. I don't know if it always was. And he gave some to Dr. J, who's on the right here, and Dr. J passed like this super long parasite, quickly. So he was like, this stuff is crazy. I want to be involved. And that's kind of how their business started, which is really cool. Dr. J's wife was very sick with chronic illness, and he was in chiropractic school. He went into chiropractic school more for the physical medicine part, but ended up, going down these huge rabbit holes to try to help his wife. And so that honestly, and Erin will know this from being there, these two have just an amazing synergy, and the company, I think, just is in a really strong place for the like the medicine of the future in a very toxic world. Oh, Amanda says she's known, hi Amanda, Todd for over 20 years. That's so cool. Yeah, just super nice people, really down to earth. And frankly, I was slow to I did interview both of these guys some years ago, and I was introduced to coffee enemas from them, the Para One from them. They didn't have so many products in the beginning. And, then I was sort of building my own company. I wasn't paying as much attention. I would try something here and there, but again, maybe I didn't really know how it was supposed to work. So this February, I went to their live training on muscle testing, and it really enlightened me about the power of the products and all that stuff. So, we have some great products on our shop that complement what they do, but they're doing some cool stuff. And it's my number one mission just to share tools that work with you guys. So this is the Para One again. It's just a simple herb. It's Mimosa pudica is the name of it, and it kind of sweeps the colon. And in the CellCore protocol, parasites are pretty high on the list of things to clear because they house, bad stuff. They house viruses and mold and stuff like that. Awesome, great. I love these comments. So I would say that now, as cell cores are maturing, they're getting a little more known too for their binders and what they call their carbon technology. So we'll get into that a bit because it's a bit confusing. But this is their HMET binder, which stands for heavy metals environmental toxins. And I think this is the one that a couple of my new Cellcore friends are saying is often best for the wildfire smoke that's been going on. So these two ladies are both muscle testers, and finding that is generally what's needed in their clients. Yeah, Erin, I mean, I'm just kind of baby stepping into muscle testing, but again, their training helped me just learn more about the products and everything, and then I'm gonna kind of slowly keep studying. But yeah, it's a lot to take on, but it's cool stuff, right? So this one is the HMET ingredients. I just kind of put it up to share a little bit. Um, so a lot of what they do and almost all of their formulations have this fulvic and humic acid that we'll talk about. And this one has the broccoli sprout, which we sell as a single ingredient. It's an incredible detoxifier to support the liver. So, their carbon technology is derived from fulvic and humic acids, which I'm calling aged biomass. It's kind of like fertilizer. It's very old organic matter from the earth, in the earth. So it can be from different regions. I'm not entirely sure what region they're getting it from. And it's just incredibly mineral rich. And I almost feel like it's almost like a superfood. I'll explain more about that. But one thing it can do is bind toxins. It can also, because especially their carbon technology travels well in the body, it can help nutrients absorb and get into the cells better. And there's science and stuff in that. It's antioxidant, which we always need in detox. You may have heard me talk about it's immune supportive. So, in things like mold and chronic illness, we need that. Neuroprotective, anti inflammatory. I don't think I really knew that before I was studying it today. Again, rich in minerals. Some people say, oh, well, doesn't it have like heavy metals and isn't it contaminated? It has metals, but not like toxic heavy metals. So there's some I did some reading up on that today, and I got a question before I came on from Instagram about H. pylori. It actually is also can be antibacterial. Plus, it's cleaning up some of those waste products in that pathogens create in the gut. So, Kiersey, yeah, Cellcore originally has said you can take the binders with food, it's fine. I think they've changed that a little bit, that like they maybe prefer you to take it away from food and medications. Maybe I think there's somebody who said they're very familiar. You can weigh in, but I think they've changed it a little bit. Um, that's the last I had heard about it. So this is kind of small, but actually, where's this? Okay. So let me show you this and I'll go backwards. So when we think about energy, we think about eating food, which is correct. And we think, protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And that's also correct. But all those things also contain carbon. And the carbon is super concentrated in this fulvic and humic acid, but it's also in foods, right? But the common conversation is to call it protein or carbs or whatever. Like, instead of focusing on the carbon part, I don't know, we just never hear about that. Maybe it's just sort of taken for granted. So we're going to talk a little bit about this upper right where it says carbon sources, energy substrates, and optimal pH. We're especially going to talk about those aspects. So I'll just read this. You may have heard it before. Carbon is the building block of life. The starches and sugars in a kernel of corn, the lignin that makes corn stalks and tree trunks stiff, the fat in the coconut oil or avocados, you name it, if it's living, is carbon-based. Plants draw carbon dioxide out of the air through photosynthesis and convert it into the carbon-based, compounds. Carbon that the plant doesn't need for growth is released through the roots to feed the soil organisms. Some of the carbon is stored as organic matter in the topsoil, where it's considered active carbon. However, long-rooted plants like perennials can store carbon much, much deeper in the ground, and some of this carbon is so stable. Whoops, I can't see because there's a little thing in front of it. It's so stable it can stay for many years. So this is kind of like what I said, this fulvic and humic acid is made from this very old biomass of stored carbon. So I think of it kind of like a superfood, right? Like, yes, there's carbon in, if you eat, steak and potato, there's carbon in there. But if you have a capsule of these, extracts of fulvic and humic minerals that they specially process, it's super carbon rich, which you need in that interaction for ATP, which we'll look at again. So here's a little bit more, just that carbon does come from food. And we just need to continually get carbon. Again, it's something we never really talk about, I don't feel like. So we're getting our carbon from food and maybe now from fulvic and humic acid. And then we want some nutrients in the process to support ATP energy production as well. That's just where that image is from. So some of the things you may have heard about for ATP production are like CoQ10. You definitely need B vitamins, vitamin C, selenium. You may have heard of people taking NAD for energy. But what I learned from Dr. Todd was like all these things are just helpers, really, because when we can just dump a bunch of carbon in, it really gets things going. And the other factor was the pH. If we go back here, optimal pH in step 2, also something we never really talk about, right? Except if we're maybe arguing about meat versus plants. But we're not talking about blood pH. We're talking about pH at the level of the mitochondria that makes us energy. And that's really where you want a low pH. So to support that, Cellcore has a lot of its products have a low pH. So neutral pH is around 7, and the more acidic are the lower numbers. So they're low pH, but it doesn't mean it's gonna like burn you or anything like that. It just means it's very active. So, for example, the CT Minerals product we'll talk about is 2.6 pH. So is their BCATP product. So these are two different mineral products. This top one is like super energetic. It's sort of their adaptogenic product. And the second one is the same pH, but a lot lower units of conductivity. Um, I think it's just the way they formulate in their goal. But both low pH. The CT Minerals, you were saying, could just go and support like so many different processes in the body. He said it creates minerals, which I don't totally know what that means. And they said you can actually make it into a spray to like grow your hair, which I thought was interesting. This BCATP, I brought it up here actually, is really nice for energy. And so, two important things here in chronic illness is one is if you've been sick a long time, you're tired. Your ATP production has been hampered, usually from oxidative damage from the toxins. So we're giving it antioxidants, we're giving carbon to that process. So not just so you can have energy, just so every cell can do its job. And that's really how we feel well, is when every cell is performing and doing its job, then we feel good. So, that was one part I was going to say. Oh, yeah, for energy production, what was the other thing I was going to say on that? I forget. Well, I'm sure it'll come up again. So, see, these are two of their products in their foundational line. Okay, let me just check your questions and then we'll keep going. Okay, so Aaron was saying you could take the binder with food or without food. So maybe, if it's difficult to remember to take at certain times, you're taking other supplements, take it with food. So there's some flexibility. Yeah. Okay. So another thing that may get in your way of getting started with cell core stuff is like the order of how you take it. And they do have a few systems and some of the things you'll be familiar with. So as they put it here, detox is grabbing onto harmful chemicals and pulling them out of the body, whereas drainage are all the organs that help toxins be released out of the body. So you can see in this diagram, first we want to move the colon on the bottom. We want to move the bottom first, and that's the colon. So you want to make sure you're having bowel movements. And when you're detoxing, when you're actually going in to grab those toxins, you really want to have a bowel movement more than once a day, which is often not how people are feeling. So we'll talk more about that. And then liver and bile support, lymphatic. They're just kind of saying like it gets deeper and deeper into the cells and organs, but really you need to start with the lower end, just kind of getting things moving. So before you work on killing and detoxing, you need to make sure drainage pathways are open and stay open. Otherwise, you're not going to feel good. So just some things that help support drainage that I like: coffee enema, dry brushing, sauna, different kinds of fluids for the kidneys, their product Bowel Mover, getting more fiber, getting plenty of movement. Those are just some good basics. And since I mentioned fluids, I thought I'd take a little side note and get into distilled water. So I've been doing distilled water, I don't know, 2 or 3 months now. So I had heard about it from Cellcore, but I was like, oh man, just another thing to do. And then at the training, the muscle testing training, they talk more about it. and these radioactive elements in water that can't really be filtered out. So I decided before I would recommend distilled water, I would test my own water. So I tested with a company called My Tap Score, and I was positive for the two radioactive elements, one more than the other. So I was like, okay, it's a legitimate thing. And that was filtered water. So I had been buying some water, bottled distilled water, and then I bought a distiller. It looks like the one on the screen here. Basically, it boils the water, and the steam is what you drink. And somehow this simple process really, really cleans the water, almost 100%, like you can see here. So just know that, city water or even your water filter are not distilling, are not cleaning to the level of a distilled water. So we'll kind of, I'll touch on some of the sort of arguments about it. If you go to there's a website for your local water facility, and they have to stay in certain limits with like things like heavy metals, but there are no levels for chemicals. So you don't know what's in there till you test. So you could test your own filter and see, how are my chemical levels, that kind of thing. But the radioactive elements, from what I've been learning, cannot be removed without distilling. So I love the water. Let's see here. I kind of explained that already, but I get a lot of questions like, oh, isn't the water like dead or stripped or whatever? So, what's in the water, the tap water, if there's minerals in there, they're not like healthy spring minerals. They're from like pipes and, waste. Like it's not good stuff. So, yes, it's kind of removed, but it's just removing bad stuff. And you can add minerals if you want, like trace mineral drops, or you can add the BC minerals, like a little bit of it. There's also drops to make the water more structured. And they said this is really to help the pH of water, not as much to like fix it or anything like that. So personally, I like the taste of distilled water. I don't add anything. I'm getting minerals through other sources. I'm doing my carbon. Uh, so I'm just happy with the water just plain. If you feel like you don't like the taste, you could add lemon or, the things we talked about. You may have a detox reaction because you've been drinking dirty water for probably your whole lifetime, like the rest of us. Um, so sometimes you need to like phase it in, or you'll notice something, you'll maybe need to take more binders, do an Epsom salt bath, that kind of a thing. I didn't have any of that experience. I just felt good from the water. Another thing they said I thought was interesting is, how some people just say like, oh, I hate drinking water, I don't like water. It could be this reason. It's like the body doesn't want this chemical water, so it's not craving it. I thought it was pretty interesting. Deborah, yeah, I knew I knew someone was going to ask me that. I think the structured water drops, oh, I just remember. They're called Double Helix is the brand. Kelly asked, will distilled water pull minerals from the bone and tissue? No, I don't. I mean, there's a resource I can try to send you guys later, but it's just neutral. Like, I don't see why it would pull minerals out, right? Like, what would it be trying to do? And again, you can add drops if you feel more comfortable with adding, remineralizing. It's totally fine. Um, I guess, like, yeah, I just don't see why it would, right? Water's just meant to be like a neutral substrate, right? And not take anything necessarily away unless your body's already trying to like detox of something. So, I guess I haven't researched that particular question, but yeah, I mean, I think I was sort of indoctrinated with all this stuff once upon a time too, that like distilled water is like stripped or bad. And I think it just made me question, like, well, where did I learn that exactly? Um, so I think as I'm learning, I don't see any harm. Um, but yeah, I happy to share some more research as I go and just look into it too. I personally don't see why it would do that. Okay. So yeah, the test I use is from the brand My Tap Score. And you can test for all types of things. So I just tested for radioactive elements, but you can test for other things too. Okay, let's see here. So, switching back into products, at the beginning of a detox, this is kind of what they suggest, although it really, really can be customized. So, the CT minerals I mentioned are sort of an adaptogenic, highly charged supplement, and they recommend just starting with one a day in the morning. So, I think you could do this with food. BCATP, we also talked about a little bit, and they recommend 4 a day. Always, you want to start slowly, one supplement at a time, one pill at a time. Because they're very strong and very low pH, it sometimes can make you a little like nauseous when you're not used to it. So that's just another reason to go slowly. The biotoxin binder is more of a neutral pH, and it's meant for things like mold toxins, bacterial toxins. So, like I mentioned, that person had a question about H. pylori. The biotoxin binder can be supportive. I don't think it's the only factor, but it can be supportive. And the last one is KL support, which stands for kidney liver. And those are really gentle, and they recommend, two twice a day. So here's the lineup for these initial supplements. The CT minerals now comes in a capsule, though. I think they had some issues with the liquid. Um, Mary Ann, yeah, I think frankly the distillers are all pretty similar. It's just how much water does it distill at once. So I bought mine on Amazon, but there's a company called My Pure Water that I may start like promoting. Hi, Kathleen. Yeah, actually, the replay will be at the same link. So if you missed the beginning or you want to share it with someone, the thing I like about YouTube Live is once we finish, it's still here at the same link. So again, kidney liver support, BCATP, biotoxin binders, CT minerals is where they often suggest to start for two reasons. One is you're ramping up the mitochondria to give it some energy to detox. I think that's what I was kind of trying to say before about why it's important to support the ATP. Is you need energy to actually do this detox. You need your body like ramped up and like ready to go. So this is what they recommend. Here's a couple ideas I have if you would like to customize. One would be to add the lymph active, which is the lymph mover, because we taught, we learned in the drainage pathway, moving lymph is helpful. You can do this with a rebounder, with dry brushing, with massage, with lymphatic massage, with exercise. But if you're noticing I remember when I was my sickest with mold, I just was swollen. My glands were swollen, my groin wasn't like visibly swollen, but for me, I could feel like just this, I could feel it. I could feel the stagnation. Some people are visibly swollen and they're having the big ankles and, puffy hands. So if you feel like you could use some extra lymphatic support, you may want to add this one in an early stage. And, you could potentially keep taking it through the stages just to keep things moving. Uh-oh. It's like missing a bunch of slides. Hold on. I'm going to have to take out of this. It didn't upload like all the slides. Oh, wait, here it goes. Okay, this is the other thing you may want to add in early stage is this supplement Bowel Mover. It's very gentle and it just kind of keeps things moving. Again, you want to have a bowel movement, ideally more than once a day, and a lot of people do not. Sometimes this is because the brain is inflamed and there isn't a good motility. And we can talk more about that in other aspects of healing that. But, a good kind of safe temporary thing is to use this bowel mover product. It sells really well in our shop. Our binder, our mytoxin binder, is also a bowel mover. So if you already own that, that's something you could add. Um, I think ours is a little stronger. So I would only probably take one of mine at night, and this I would take two. Um, Also, doing more fiber, like the Mega Pre, the Mega Mucosa by Microbiome Labs, also helpful. The Mega Guard will help some of that motility. So just be, making sure you're moving your bowels. It's really important. So to kind of back up a little bit, in this early stage, as you think about if you want to purchase anything, think about supporting energy with things like the CT minerals and the BCATP, doing a little gentle binding with a biotoxin binder, maybe supporting the kidney liver. Again, this one's really gentle. Maybe adding the lymph active or the bowel mover um, in this early stage. So Kelly was asking if the body's unhealthy, will it stress it? Is it okay to go low and slow? Yeah, I mean um, unfortunately, not too many healthy people are interested in detoxing. Most of us are not doing well by the time we get here. So yeah, basically low and slow is how to go. That rhymes, but everybody's different. So some people are very supplement sensitive. Some people because they have mast cell. I actually was learning that we mentioned that the binders reduce histamines. So even if you can only take like a quarter dose of something, it's okay. I would not suggest buying like a lifetime supply of things out the gate because they cannot be returned from Cellcore. So just buy one, and see how you like it. I know when I was really sick and again new to these products, I remember the BCATP making me nauseous. It just because I took too much the first time. I remember the Tudka being really intense and going right through me. Um, I just this winter I did a lot of the parasite cleansing, and I don't think I had opened up. I don't think I was giving my body enough support, so the parasite cleansing was a little intense for me. But you can always adjust. So you do less product basically or more drainage support. That's kind of your options. And usually, people can tolerate some amount. Worst case scenario, if you can't tolerate any supplements where you are right now, I encourage people to do more techniques, focus on techniques at first, do dry brushing, do deep breathing outside, just kind of like see what your body can tolerate. Um, and then again, you can do like a little bit more with foods, getting like high fiber foods, getting antioxidant teas. There's always a way to make it gentler if you need to. Oh, and also I learned from a practitioner recently, you can clear out some of the mast cell with Alka-Seltzer Gold. I think it's kind of like a baking soda thing. So if you're just like reacting to everything, that can kind of clear the air. So okay, so phase 2, how they suggest in one of their plans is you're still doing some binding, some mineralizing, and now you're adding some parasite and you're adding some Tudka. So Tudka, in my understanding, is really like flushing the bile. So good for the parasites. Para 1 is kind of a sticky, sweeping the colon thing. And Para 2 is more herbal and works on a lot of different parasites. So at this point, you may say, yeah, I'm going to get into parasite cleansing. I would 100% not do this still in a moldy home. I would do this only when you really feel strong enough because the parasite stuff will create some die off and you need to be strong enough to handle that and supporting that, right? So just I would say go into the parasite phase with caution and just be honest with yourself, like, am I ready to stir the pot right now? Is my body stable enough, my home life stable enough that I'm ready to play around with some of this stuff? Because sometimes it takes many months, frankly, again, this is like a protocol that they give out, but often 1 month of parasite cleansing isn't enough. It's gonna help, and if you just want to do their protocol according to how they say, it will help things. But in real life, parasite cleansing can take quite a while and you can sometimes not feel good. So, again, I just encourage you. I mean, saying treat parasites kind of first is a nice theory, but sometimes we're not up to it. And frankly, it's probably something we need to do a couple times a year. So, if you can't do it quite yet, or you can only do it for a short amount of time, you can pick it back up. Sunny, no, I don't know anything about Silver Fern or a spokesman for that. I'm not sure who that is. Yeah, you don't again, everything can be customized, right? So I don't know if you ladies with some diverticulitis have tried the fulvic and humic acids and to see if they're more tolerable, but it's something to try. They also come from some companies in a liquid form. So here would be the dosing if you move into phase 2 of Detox with Cellcore. And this is on their website too if you buy something from them. I really like this product from Cellcore. It's called CT Biotic. So it has some probiotics, both spore and non-spore, and the carbon technology. So basically everyone with a moldy situation has a messed up gut. It's just going to happen. So I find this to be a really nice way to have a little bit more bowel movements, get some detox, and also restore the gut all in one. So I really like this product. I'd love to get people's feedback too if you start to try some things and you want to just let me know I really like this product or whatever, because we may carry more of it in our shop if we find that you guys have your favorites. Since this isn't all spore, it is supposed to be refrigerated. That could be a bit of a problem because our warehouse is not cold. But yeah, let me know. Again, if you feel like I'm just got out of a moldy house, I'm not ready to remove parasites, this could be a really nice product to add in, as you want to deepen your protocol, and then it's still very gentle. And this is another thing you could use for mold. It's called carboxy. It's a very intense powdered binder. So it's like the big guns of binding. Maybe if your levels of mycotoxins are very, very high, something like that could be something to bring in, or if you prefer something that's you can mix in water. So here are their steps. Again, that first step was the jump start where you're supporting the mitochondria and the drainage. Second step is a little bit more for gut and immunity. Third step is going more whole body, and sort of same with step 4. So I'm going to show you step 3 and 4, but I don't think everyone gets there. But it gives you an introduction to the products. So step 3, you're still doing some minerals, para 1 still, but now we've added para 3 on the bottom here, which is a stronger parasite tincture. This binder is called Virad Chem. Oh wait, this is the one they were using for wildfire smoke. Not that, I don't think it was HMET, it was this one, Virad Chem. So this is for viruses, radiation, chemicals. And I think it's pretty gentle, but for whatever reason, they have it in the step 3. Tudka, we talked about. Um, and then again, para 3 is a stronger one. So here's this para 3, because it's in drops is partly why it's stronger. And you can start with lower drops too. This one is definitely strong. Step 4, they have you still with the ATP for energy. And then this is heavy metals environmental toxin binder, the lymph active, and para 4. So para 4 is actually more gentle and works on some viruses and bacteria and Lyme and stuff as well. So it's not like necessarily the numbers get more and more extreme. They're just different. So for whatever reason they have step 4, you're getting really moving the lymph, supporting the immune system. So to me, this seems like a little bit more gentle stage than step 2 and 3 in a sense. Um, so here's a bit about that para 4, which is, I think, all herbal. And they said it's a little bit more gentle, but can help clean out a lot of stuff. And since I mentioned that I would talk about it, these are their Lyme and co-infection tinctures. So I don't think they can make any medical claims, but basically it's Babesia, Bartonella, and this IS boost is just a general immune booster. And then the last one on the right here is Borrelia. So if you have a known infection of any of these, it's something you can add at any point. I will say these are very strong. So you really just need to start with a little bit. And again, like, be ready for it. Be ready to like get after it. Sometimes you notice like these were not in any of the foundational protocols we discussed. Sometimes the body, Lyme activates, Lyme and its co-infections activate in a weakened host. So sometimes just strengthening the host, detoxing the body is enough that you don't need to ever treat Lyme. So that's a debatable subject. And again, this could be over even years. You're working on parasites, you're working on Lyme, or not. So if it's something that you want to work on, you've been called to work on, I think these products are very good. But I don't think, everybody, especially if you're just moving out of a moldy house, you necessarily have to, at that point, test and treat for Lyme. Every practitioner is different, right? But to me, at that point, just get the organism stronger. And then, maybe a little later, you could think about Lyme and co-infections, that kind of a thing. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. And this I wanted to share. I know it's like a little bit hard to see, so I'll put it in the chat in a minute. But we're just experimenting with giving you guys access to the complete CellCore library of products. And since it's through practitioners only, you just need to put in this patient code, register as a patient, and then you can buy whatever you want. And they ship it right to you. So I'll put it in the chat in a second here. But this is what it looks like, and I'll show you in a minute. And just also, if you just happened upon me as your first time on my YouTube, I'd love for you to follow and check out some other videos and check out my website. I have a lot of free ebooks. I have a full-length Amazon book on mold as well, if that's something you're dealing with. Okay, so let me put this away and go show you guys a couple more things. But I'm happy to take questions at this point. Feel free to ask about, your particular case, because I know that's sort of where we get stuck. It's like, but what about me and what's going on with me? Which is totally valid because we're all a little different. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat. It'll also be below the YouTube, in the YouTube like notes as well. So when you go to Cellcore, you can buy products one by one, or you can buy these kits that like we talked about. So if you want to customize, that's fine. Or if you want to just like start with a jumpstart kit, you could. Or you can just start with one product. You can just try like the BCATP for energy, or the minerals are kind of a nice neutral helper, or the bowel mover is a good one, or the lymph active. So how are you guys feeling? Do you feel like this is exciting? This is overwhelming? Happy to hear about it. I think I can even, if we want, we could do a little case study perhaps as well. Deborah said she's just finishing up with a month of parasite cleanse. How do I know if it's working when I didn't see any visible parasites? Deborah, did you poke into your stool or do a coffee enema during that month? Oh, Kathleen feels overwhelmed. Okay, let's see if we can help you, Kathleen, with anything specific. I'm happy to help. Um, do we have a branch in Canada? I'm not sure if they can ship to Canada or not. You know, sometimes it's tricky because of getting supplements over the border. Um, I've never heard they have it one in Canada. Um, so you may be able to ship to Canada from the site, though. I'm sorry, I don't know that offhand. I'll go look at it a little more once we're off. I'm sure they want to be in Canada. So if they're not there yet, I'm sure they would like to be. Okay, so Deborah said she did a coffee enema and looked at her stool and didn't see any parasites. Well, sometimes they like literally are like invisible. Sometimes you see like an oily film on the water. Deborah, it also could be dependent on the amount of, the dosage you use. So, I've had friends like not see much. Also, it can look like a lot of things. Like it can look like black rice. It can look like a seed, like a hemp seed. Um, it's not always long and stringy. That's only one type of parasite. Um, so sometimes it's something's coming out, or it's just kind of buried in the stool. Um, I would encourage you. Okay, so Deborah, did you have any like parasite testing? Stephanie, the code is right here. This is our code. I think that first thing is a 0. So it's 0, small a, small q. I put it in the chat. Sorry, it's kind of like smushed against the URL. So, Deborah, I would say you have some options. You could just be like, I'm done. I did my month and I'm done. I mean, it's great that you're parasite cleansed. You may just have not seen anything. I don't know if you were the one who texted me on Instagram about H. pylori. So H. pylori can be treated with things like propolis, like I'm trying to remember all the things. Olive leaf, I think. I'm kind of blanking out. The supplement Mega Guard, but sometimes H. pylori needs more motility. So it can also be that I like the Mega Guard because it does a little bit for H. pyloris, but it also helps movement. But there's are different herbals for H. pylori if you want to go over that or like add those. The problem with H. pylori is sometimes it's reducing the amount of stomach acid available to break down your food. So we all have a little H. pylori, but we just don't want like a big amount. And sometimes H. pylori can be cancerous to the stomach, but not all the time. So you may want to do a protocol for that, Deborah, and just let the parasite thing like go to bed. Or you may want to try it again in 6 months or a year, and be a little more aggressive or use a different brand. I don't know what brand you used this time. So I've used Cellcore brand and I've also used Barlow Herbal brand for parasites. And they've both worked for me. Oh, Emily asked a really good question. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Which supplements are good for general detox if you don't know what specific toxins you have? Yeah. So definitely the BCATP and the minerals are good just for like getting that all going. Energizing the body. I think the liver kidney one, I think is a nice little support. It's nice and gentle. That could be a nice thing to do. If you're up for it, Emily, I would do some like just I'm really into like coffee enema, sauna, castor oil packs, Epsom salts, dry brushing, all that stuff that keeps things moving is really a nice general detox support for your entire lifetime. Um, and as far as the binders, they're all a little different. So you could even do different ones at different time. Like you could run through a bottle of the biotoxin binder and then run through a bottle of the HMET binder. That could be a way to like, even if you don't know what you have, you're just sort of mixing up your binders a little bit and capturing what's in there. I think this could be some ways to play with it. I also, like I said, I love that CT biotic because it's good for the gut and it's a little binding. So I think that's a great general maintenance detox product. Personally, I really like that one. But let me know if you have any other questions. Oh, great. You're already doing sauna and bentonite clay. Yeah, maybe just mix up your type of binders because every binder has its own little specialties. So just mix it up. And then you could also think about your symptoms. So if you are having low energy, think about the BCATP. If you're probably not having any swelling because you're doing sauna every day, but if a person is having that lymphatic issue, then they could think about the lymph active. So it definitely can be customized, which I think is where people get a little stuck. Let me just share too for you guys. If you want to, have a session with me, I'm happy to dig into all of it. If you want to just sort of go over all of it. So I'll put our consultation links in the chat here too. Yeah, Kelly, I talked about the carboxy a little bit. Yeah, it is a strong one for mold. Thank you for pointing that out. I haven't used it as much. I do own it. It's not as fun to take for me because it's like drinking muddy water. But it is like it's like, maybe if you've started with the biotoxin binder and you just need like that higher level of support, the carboxy is like the Cadillac binder, like really grabbing onto things. Marianne said she has a candida overgrowth. What would be good to start with? I think that CT biotic, is that what it's called? I think that's it. CT biotic with the binder and the spores in it. Do you have mold, Marianne? Because mold and candida often go together. So you could think about the biotoxin binder as well, because that's for mold. And then in a different line of products, I'll put it in you have mold as well. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like those two. Here, let me write it down for you. CT biotic, biotoxin binder. If you're tired, I would do the BCATP and or just to energize like we talked about. And then from Microbiome Labs, I would do the Mega Microbalance for the Candida. It's really nice and gentle. Sometimes the candida will keep lingering because the system is just kind of weak. So just supporting the immune system and the gut um, is good for the candida as well. Oh, Sarah has a good one. Can the biotoxin binder be taken a long term, like 6 months? Yeah, it can. There's only like one product I think they say you have to take breaks on. It's like I think it's the Para 3. Um, so if you're going to take a binder long term, I personally would take it away from food. And I am a fan of mixing. I mean, if you just like the biotoxin binder, it could be fine. But again, like I said earlier, I think every binder, every brand works a little differently. So you might want to play around with like this month I'm taking GI Detox. This month I'm taking, activated charcoal. You can try our binders, my toxin binder. There's some binders from Dr. Isaac Elias that are nice. He's got this glypho detox binder. He's got the Pectosol C binder. So it's up to you, but I do like playing around a bit to see what, your body, you may not notice per se, but you may notice that your body likes one more than and then the other. And then we're just covering more of our bases, I think, with some rotation. So good question. I used to definitely take binders more when I still had mold in my body, and I don't now, which is great, but I'm still exposed to pesticides and things, gasoline additives. We all are. Frankly, I think I've slacked on taking binders since then, and I am trying to take them more. So I think it was Aaron who said they are kind of flexible and you could take them with a meal. So I think that's good to know. Sometimes I do say, "Oh, well, I already took my whatever. I can't take a binder." And I do think in this day and age, you don't necessarily have to take a binder every single day, but I think it is good. It's good a thing to take with some regularity, just as you're eating out and that kind of a thing. So I'm actually going to run one of our newer toxin tests on myself just to see like how am I doing? What am I exposed to these days? Because I think it does change, like based on where your health is at, where you're living at the time, that kind of a thing. Okay. I think I got all the questions. We're almost at the hour here. I put the Cellcore site in the chat and our scheduling link for private sessions. I'll also put the scheduling link in the YouTube chat or the YouTube description because I don't think the chat will show later on. Yeah, Kelly, I think they can all be taken with food, but I would try to sometimes like I really like to take a binder like first thing in the morning, first thing and last thing at night personally. So I think if you're having trouble with all the scheduling, take it with food. But if you can take it at those times away from food, I think it's also very potent. The parasite stuff you're supposed to take a half an hour before food. But like I found I would forget and I would just take at bedtime, like the parasite stuff and a binder. Like there's some flexibility, really. So it's most important you get it in. Again, because of the way their carbon technology is, they think it's safer to take with food and stuff. But I would say if you can separate it, that's great. Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Um, Yeah, definitely, Sarah. Like, there's some of their binders that are more expensive for sure. Um, so another reason maybe to start with one bottle, see if you like it, see if you can kind of tell the difference in your body. It does. They have short and long chain like carbons or something. I didn't get a chance to double check all that, but that's why they can go like into the bloodstream, into the cells, because it's more sophisticated than just like activated charcoal, like plain, which is like $10, which still works. It still does something, but theirs is like fancy, right? It's like more effective. So you may need, potentially less amount over time or less in a day. So that can be a benefit. I mean, we're all just wanting to get well, but yeah, some of their products are quite pricey. Some are more medium. but the binders are a little pricey for sure. Well, thanks everyone for being on. I really appreciate it. It will replay at this same link, and you can also just reach out to our team if you have questions, or I'd love to hear what you are thinking about a certain supplement you try. So I'll put our email in the chat here as well. Yeah, you're welcome, Marianne. Thanks for being on here. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.